Hello and welcome to the Sekimeiya Spun. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, I played this game on Indie Sunday, the first roughly hour of the game, and I will do like a quick summary of what happened there if you don't want to go back and watch that, but I would recommend it just to sort of get the beginning of the game. So for those of you that, have watched that episode, you can just skip to the start. I guess I'll put like a timestamp in the description or something like that. But basically, our main character and the other main character, I've played now. It's difficult to really determine who is a main character and who isn't, but he's the main character. That's his friend. They went to see a particular jewel of some sort, which is called the Sekimeiya, in this I don't think it's a museum. It's sort of like just a building basically where it's in there, and they offer people to go and see it. So they went there, and they were let in groups of 3. So there was one other guy with them, and as they were entering the room, and as the person guiding them there opened up the lock basically, or unlocked the cabinet, black sort of smoke came out of the rooms, out of the floor, wherever it came from. I think out of the walls actually, and covered everything, and they all fell unconscious, and they woke up later on, and the person, the guide essentially, was gone, never to be found again. We don't know yet. We played 1 hour. And there were a couple of other people that they found sort of strewn about those few rooms and corridors that they were in. I think in total might have been 7 or 8 people. Like the guard was there. There were a family of 3, I think, and one other dude. We'll meet them again fairly shortly. And essentially they're locked in because what happened is kind of the anti-theft measures kicked in and completely sealed the whole building shut, and they can't get out now. And what they want to do now is figure out what the hell happened, how to get out, and most importantly, whether someone actually stole the jewel, because we don't know that yet. Because I stopped playing the episode literally the moment we were about to go check if the jewel actually got stolen, because they kind of assumed that from the start. Of course, they're going to do all this to steal the jewel. What else would they be doing? But yeah, we're going to see if that is actually what happened. All right, let's go. Shiroya and I made our way back to the room where we'd fallen unconscious. Once Kate entered, our 7 pairs of eyes focused on the dark-colored curtain that blocked the view to the cabinet's interior. So, you're saying that none of you saw behind this curtain before or after the smoke, right? Yes, Naomi was about to raise it, but then the smoke appeared. People went quiet at the mention of Naomi. Given the alarm had played when she'd been there, her disappearance was very strange. Let's see then. What do you guys think? Is it still here? It was very hard to think it still would be, and going off their expressions, everyone else agreed with me. I think it's still there. I say it is. That would make things more interesting, wouldn't it? And I'm curious about how it looks. After those questionable words, Sai proceeded to slowly raise the curtain, exaggerating his own action. As the curtain was being raised, dust that had gotten stuck on it shook loose and formed a little pile on the floor. The major part of what the curtain was covering was clean wood that contrasted the stained room. Finally, a transparent pane of glass sheltering a cushion came into view. The curtain had been fully raised. Because of the darkness of the room, it took us a bit to see what was behind that glass. Let me see, is it there? I don't remember who's here. Just based off the first letter of their name. I remember basically the characters, but I don't remember their names. Sai, being next to the cabinet, was staring inside. We all got closer as well. Inside was a red cushion, a color that would have definitely looked beautiful if not for the lack of proper illumination. And on that cushion, occupying a small space of it, was a white-colored sphere. Looking closer, it wasn't actually a sphere, but an egg-shaped stone. It shined very faintly. It was big and could easily be mistaken for an actual egg. However, we all knew it wasn't. Naomi had told us that it was an incredibly rare gem, and putting aside how simple it was, it looked very pretty and elegant. It's this, right? It wasn't taken. Are you saying this was Ashia's big find? How can we be sure it's the real thing?
It is. I've seen it before. I happened to spend hours in front of the security cameras.
Isla looked dumbfounded and couldn't help but stare.
How disappointing. I guess it still pleased all those other people, but I came here purely out of curiosity, and despite not having any kind of expectations, I'm embarrassed to admit I'm a bit let down. This can be as rare as you want to call it, but it's just an egg.
An incredibly valuable one, apparently. And it's still here? What was all the smoke for then? I know I said I hoped for this to be the case, but I'm not too sure anymore. This probably means that the culprit's plan wasn't really all that elaborate. They might just plan to spend 12 hours with us, and when it's time to leave, have an easy way out with this thing. And how exactly will they pull that off? I don't know, but it's practically impossible. What's happening doesn't have to do with this, right? The end goal must be to steal it, so this just means that the plan isn't over yet.
I'm not so sure. Hey Kate, do you know if Naomi was aware of the existence of that alarm?
Naomi, she shouldn't have been, but I couldn't tell you for sure. Why?
Imagine this for a second. Naomi's job is perfectly positioned for this. She acted confused when the attack happened, but was prepared for the smoke. However, the alarm that locked her inside didn't factor into her plan because she wasn't aware of it. Atsuki, you said you heard the alarm a few seconds after the smoke was released. Do you know how many approximately?
20, maybe?
So 20 seconds later, pretty much everyone is unconscious and Naomi hears this alarm. By this point, she doesn't know that it's trapping her in the tower. If she had, she would have pretended to be unconscious until we all woke up. But she didn't. Instead, she obtained the Sekimeiya thanks to her key and left with it to proceed with her plan. I'm not sure how it continues now, or how she intended to escape, but she realized that the exit had been blocked off. Kate said this was a very specific alarm that hadn't gone off before, so it would make sense if she didn't recognize its sound. Well, as she finished searching for an exit or a way to continue with her plan, she thought her only choice was to come back and play the confused card. But as she was coming back, she probably heard me opening this door and backed out. It's clear she's the most suspicious person in the building. It's possible she was listening to us and heard that we didn't look behind the curtain. By leaving before doing so, we gave her a chance to look innocent. When we were in the hallway, she simply entered the room again and placed the Sekimeiya back in the cabinet. Now it's possible we'll find her playing dumb or pretending to be knocked out somewhere, claiming she was disoriented and trying to assess the situation. It's impossible she's not trapped in here with us.
I see. That would make sense. It could very well be that this top secret alarm only played whenever someone tried to get the Sekimeiya out of here, and that she hadn't been informed of it. Sai shot Kate a glance, clearly displeased that he had to make that assumption based on limited information. Come on, we haven't found her yet, so shouldn't you wait to draw conclusions until we do? For all we know, she's looking for a way out to help us. You're right, we can't assume that Naomi is responsible, and we need to establish something that clears her name a little bit. Even though you guys just tried to explain things with the delayed alarm, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Naomi's job was to explain everything about the Sekimeiya and make sure the exhibition happened smoothly. An alarm that's triggered when the Sekimeiya is removed is something she would know about, so thinking that she was unaware of it is pretty ridiculous. And while her position is convenient to orchestrate this, it also makes her a very strong suspect from the get-go. I can't be sure of this, but before the time I heard the alarm, I did hear the sound of a body falling, and given all three of us were already down on the floor, it must have been Naomi's. On top of that, the glass hadn't been opened, so if she opened it while I was on the floor and triggered the alarm, I think I would have heard it. Not to mention how risky this is. Surely she would have waited until all of us were definitely unconscious to get the Sekimeiya out.
This also implies the alarm was unstable. Even if she triggered it by opening the cabinet, she had previously unlocked it. The alarm would have gone off when someone forced it open, not when someone opened it after unlocking it. However, there is one thing that's totally impossible, and that is that the Sekimeiya was first stolen and then brought back. Akaro seemed intrigued to know why his idea was incorrect. Remember the curtain back then? Oh, I think I see what you mean. The black substance had already dried on the curtain. Just now, as Sai raised it, a bunch of those particles fell on the floor and almost none of them stayed on the curtain. So, it didn't move after you left. And it's not possible to touch the glass without moving the curtain. The Sekimeiya must have also been here when we woke up. It could be that Naomi brought back the Sekimeiya while we were still sleeping. That wouldn't contradict anything since the substance might not have fully dried on the curtain by that point. That doesn't make sense either though. She would have only done that if she hadn't accounted for the alarm, so if she gave up on her plan and placed the Sekimeiya back before we woke up, she would have also closed her eyes and laid on the floor as if nothing happened. Regardless of what the exact events had been, the Sekimeiya was inside its cabinet. What had the point of the smoke been? What had triggered the alarm and what would happen next? It still felt surreal, everything that had suddenly happened. Can I touch it? What? No, don't. Isla had been staring at the Sekimeiya with an astonished face. Maybe because it seemed to be the core of everything, touching it must have sounded almost dangerous. Why not? Naomi was going to let us do it. Is this even open? It looks like the glass is shut. It shouldn't be. According to what Naomi said earlier, the key she had must have unlocked it. If it's open, you should be able to move the glass. Let me see. It's open, yes. I can scroll the glass down. The glass had a little opening to put your fingers in and push it down. If the lock was open, we'd be able to move it. From the looks of it, it was not a very sturdy or wide piece of glass, so breaking it with force seemed possible too. Sai scrolled it all the way down and we fixed our eyes on the Sekimeiya, no longer protected by any layer of security. Isla extended her arm slowly. Nobody except Irina looked concerned about her doing it, but I could tell that Shiria was still agitated by the fact that none of them wanted to drop everything and find the missing person. Before Isla got to touch the Sekimeiya, she spoke. It's cold. You're right, actually. The air inside the cabinet is cold. Oh, right, I was told about this. Apparently the Sekimeiya must remain in a cold place. This was a very basic thing everyone was told, and it sounded very important. Why would that be needed? I'm afraid I'm clueless. This is why the temperature inside the cabinet is very low, though. That sounded interesting. For whatever reason, the Sekimeiya had to always stay in a cold place, or at least that was what the Ashia family had instructed. Maybe that was the reason why it had been left in the cabinet even after the attack. Do we check what happens if we get it out? What? Of course not. The Sekimeiya must remain inside this cabinet. We were very specifically told not to remove it or subject it to any kind of heat. I suppose it's still Kate's duty to act according to the rules. If something happened to the Sekimeiya, there would probably not be a positive outcome for him given that he was basically supervising us. Assuming the blame didn't get shifted to Naomi for some reason at least. If the Sekimeiya was actually left here due to the cold temperature, it follows whoever put the attack together must have somehow learned of that requirement. Isla, who'd paused her movement due to Kate's serious voice, continued moving her arm toward the Sekimeiya. In just a second she was in reach, and her small hand was placed on top of it. Silently she felt it for a few moments before letting out an amazed gasp. Oh, it's very smooth. I love it. She started feeling it conspicuously with a smile on her face. Is it? Naomi did say touching it was part of the experience. Shiria joined her, evidently trying to make Isla feel better. You're right, this feels very pleasant to the touch, and also really cold. Worth all the advertisement and expectations? Yes. No, not really, but touching it is pretty relaxing. It feels almost silky. Given our situation and the fact Naomi is missing, we should let this be. I know we'll most likely be here for 12 hours, but this piece is very important and we should not be careless.
Sai and I were going to be the next ones to touch it, but we had to respect that. Without responding verbally, Isla and Shiraya removed their hands from the cabinet. Kate's request was a reasonable one, and we still had more important things to think about. Even though 6 of us had come to see the Sekimeiya, only Isla seemed to have a legitimately strong interest in it. I looked at the left side of the cabinet, expecting to find something. There was the keyhole Naomi had used to unlock the glass. It says it here, unlocked. This is how Naomi unlocked the cabinet. Kate, do you know how many keys can open it?
I don't know for sure, but certainly not many. I'm only aware of the one Naomi had.
So the only person who can open this is Naomi, who just happened to disappear and might be hiding somewhere. Stop assuming her intentions are bad just because we haven't seen her yet. We have to find her as soon as we can.
Yes, but before that, we have to contact the outside from the security room. I would like to know what our situation actually looks like, and if Naomi went upstairs all by herself and chose to leave us unconscious, I won't be prioritizing her now.
I guess so. Splitting up is probably a bad idea, but if she isn't back when we finish, we really need to go looking.
There wasn't any other opposition. If Naomi intended to show herself to us, she would come back eventually.
We worked under the assumption that she still had the cabinet key. However, if she'd ever fallen unconscious, someone could have easily grabbed it, maybe failing to recognize that the cabinet was already unlocked. If she'd woken up as that happened, the culprit might have panicked and been responsible for her disappearance. But that was a worst case scenario, and not something we could easily jump to. It was true that contacting the outside was much more important.
Let's go to the security room. That is where I work. We're very close to it, actually. It is beneficial to have it on the lowest floor next to the entrance.
Kate closed the glass and gave us a look that once again indicated how precious of an item the Sekimeiya was. Subsequently, he opened the opposite door of the room. Past it was a very similar hallway. Like in the other one, the ceiling and walls were stained by an ugly dark color. It had been a while since the smoke's release, so the substance had dried up fully, letting more light pass through. Once everyone was with us, I peeked into one of the rooms in front of us. As Akaro had said, it looked clean, creating the same contrast as the lobby. The light worked perfectly, and there was almost no trace of the smoke, apart from the small amount that had passed through the gaps of the door. It seemed the function of the room was only to showcase different kinds of gemstones placed inside cabinets. I couldn't be sure though, as all of them were covered by curtains.
It's that door.
Without moving, Kate said those words, indicating the single door that stood out. While all the others were normal wooden doors, that one was grey and looked much more sturdy. Once Kate approached it, we walked behind. On it was a nameplate with the words Security Room. Kate grabbed the doorknob, and upon turning it, he tried to push the door forward. However, it didn't budge.
Oh, right, I locked it earlier. Let me see.
You locked it?
Yes, I have the key right here.
Taking a couple of keys out of his pocket, Kate inserted one of them in the keyhole.
This is an important room. When I left, I wasn't exactly aware of the situation, given I couldn't see through some of the cameras. I found it appropriate to lock the only room that allows communication with the outside until I knew more about what had happened.
That was probably a good idea. With a simple turn, the door was audibly unlocked. Before entering, I inquired about something I found next to it. Oh, is this a map? I almost didn't notice it since the entire wall looks the same.
Yes, it's a map of this first floor. The rooms labeled with a letter and a number are what we call the crystal rooms. They're the exhibition rooms where all the gemstones are displayed.
I brushed off the dry dust and looked at it. Okay, minimap unlocked. Press middle click to access it. You can display permanently in settings general order. Okay. As Kate had said, the map only showed the first floor's contents, and it seemed stairs and an elevator would lead us to the others. It was the only floor that was usually open to the public, so there were a large number of rooms to visit. So it basically has rooms A1 through A5 and B1 through B6. Then it has the event room, the staff room, the cleaning room, the storeroom, the bathrooms, the lobby, and the elevator. So, if I understood correctly, the event room would be the one where the Sekimeiya was placed. And yeah, okay, storeroom, all of that makes sense. We're currently in the security room, so we are currently here. We came from here and went this way. I don't know if we initially, I'm assuming we initially went here. I think the game might have actually told us which door we went through, but I can't remember. We found ourselves in hallway A, next to the security room, and had much left of the whole floor to look through. As a notable point, the event room was the only room that connected both hallways apart from the lobby and the perpendicular hallway C. As expected, there were bathrooms too, so we wouldn't have to worry on that front. Yeah, I didn't actually see that, but both A1 and B1 are closed off on one side each, which is curious, but alright. There's light coming from the end of the hallways. That means the horizontal one wasn't hit by the smoke, right?
Yes, only these sections were.
Kate, who'd claimed to have slightly inspected the floor, showed us exactly where the smoke had been released.
So if one of the goals of the smoke was to disable the security cameras, they didn't use hallway C for anything. Yes, I looked at the live footage of it while I was in this room and no one showed up. They still would have had 2 available ways to cross the hallways though.
Everyone looked pensive, including Isla, but they voiced none of their thoughts. The layout was pretty simple, remembering it wouldn't be a problem, but we could always look at the map again. Kate waited until everyone was done examining it to open the door. Like the lobby and the room I'd just looked into, the place was completely clean and no traces of smoke could be found, not even any that had slipped through the door. However, the contrast wasn't as noticeable given the room's darker colors and faint light. Paying no mind to everyone's silence, Kate made his way to the chair and sat down. When he moved the mouse, the computer exited its suspended state and reactivated the 3 monitors above it, showing us what the last person to use it had been doing. Above those 3 screens were many more monitors that displayed the real-time footage of the cameras. While there was no way every room of every floor was shown there, at first glance there was no trace of Naomi or another person. All these security cameras. Does this mean we'll be able to look at the recorded footage?
We should be able to. I don't believe you'd be authorized to, but given the situation we might be able to look at it after we talk with the outside.
That was an interesting proposition. Looking at the recorded footage might have revealed the source of the smoke if someone else hadn't been able to evacuate, and information on Naomi's whereabouts. We all got closer to Kate and looked at the screens. It seemed the computer was using a standard operating system. Is this the current time?
Oh yes, this means it's now 9:41.
As Kate said, next to the numbers that displayed the date, the current time showed 9:41. That meant the exit would unlock at approximately 21:05, in 11 hours and 20 minutes.
We started a bit late, so I think the smoke appeared 5 minutes after we left the lobby. I'd say we've been awake for more than 20 minutes already, so this would mean we were unconscious for about 15 minutes. Yes, this matches with the amount of time I stayed here after I saw the smoke. Shortly after that, the alarm went off, so I knew I was already trapped. During that time, until I exited, I stayed looking at the cameras. I also tried to use the computer to look up information about what had happened, but the alarm even shut down my internet connection.
Wait, what? Why would it do that? You said you still have a way to communicate with the outside, so why didn't you use it?
Oh, I did not find it appropriate. My top priority was to find out what was happening here, so I focused on looking at all the cameras that remained functional.
Don't you think a very good way to find out what was happening would have been to ask the outside?
You might be right. That could have been the smarter choice, but I did not think it through well enough.
So, even though the internet connection is cut off, you have a communication method?
Yes, this computer is connected to all the computers on the upper floors. Even though there's no connection, a way exists to connect with the Arshia family, and only the security staff knows about it. It does not use the normal internet connection, and it was designed in case of emergencies.
So if you weren't here, we would have to spend 12 hours locked up not knowing what's actually happening and without a way to communicate with the outside world.
Yes, it sounds rough, but this alarm doesn't get triggered lightly. We should just be content with the fact that I stayed inside. I wouldn't have been doing my job if I'd evacuated.
Nobody had anything else to add, so Kate proceeded. Deep within many folders, he started up a program that contained a very simple interface. After inputting a username and an encrypted password we couldn't read, he pressed the enter key. The small window shifted into a much larger and empty one. The first thing we noticed was that a loud, unintelligible audio feed was being played. Seconds later, a video appeared in the center of the window. Is this a car? Yeah, it looks like a car seat. Everyone looked at Kate, but he shrugged and kept watching. The video was probably live and the echo was obnoxiously loud. We could hear many people talking in the background, but it was impossible to make out any words. We continued staring at the screen, unsure what we were actually looking at. Is anything going to change? Nobody answered a question they couldn't answer. After more than 15 seconds, nothing had changed and the audio continued playing. This is for communication, right? Can they hear us right now?
They actually should be able to. Hello, can anyone hear us? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Amidst the messy noise, we noticed one of the voices was strengthening.
I'm from Asia, talking from inside the tower. Is anyone there? Oh, yes, it's coming from inside. There's finally an incoming connection. My apologies. Hello, is this working? Do you see me?
The camera was manually moved by the person who sat in front of it. Still inside a car, a police officer was uncertainly fixing his eyes on the lens.
Yes, by the looks of it, you're aware of the situation.
Kate said that because Asia Tower could be seen through the car's windows, a great deal of police officers were in front of it, and I could see that the metal shutter looked just as ridiculous from the other side. It was a bizarre thought knowing that we were inside. We definitely hadn't been on a streak of good luck, but getting trapped inside a building the first time we'd stepped into it let us know that life wouldn't feel like redeeming itself anytime soon. I had been trying to act composed and stave off all my negative thoughts, but the prospect of having to spend another 11 hours trapped in a building was daunting, and Shira surely felt similar.
We know what occurred, yes. The Ashia family was in contact with us, and we were informed of this communication method. Since a member of the security staff was assumed to still be in the tower, we kept this device with us, expecting it to be activated at any moment. I'm a police officer. My name is Suripo.
So, can you see us?
No, I can only receive audio feed.
The man sounded a bit thrown off after hearing the voice of a little girl. It was only natural, given the vast majority of the people who'd formed the line had been adults.
What happened in there? How many of you are inside? There should be 8 of us, even though only 7 are present. However, we can't be certain someone else didn't get trapped either. We have not inspected the entire building yet.
You're in the security room, right? If there were more people, couldn't you see them through the security cameras?
Let me see. We just got here, so we haven't looked extensively. Some cameras have been disabled by the smoke and some places are without cameras, but I can try looking through the ones that remain functional.
Since the number of monitors wasn't enough to display all the live cameras at once, Kate started to move through them with a program that seemed to manage the entire system. Presumably, only the first floor was being monitored continuously, being the one with unfettered public access. He was able to change all the cameras being displayed at once, making the process simple and brief. As he'd said, the only thing to be seen through a handful of them was a black screen created by the smoke. Even after the substance had solidified, there was no chance we could see well through it. Strangely enough, the last cameras that Kate displayed showcased a much different environment. The first floor had contained all the exhibition rooms, and from there it had only been dull offices. But some of the cameras were displaying a bedroom.
This must look odd to you all, correct? Do you know the story behind this place? This was the Ashia family's residence until a decade ago. Then its purpose changed and work floors began to be added. This is why it's called a tower. The townspeople saw that floors kept being constructed, and they started to call it a tower sarcastically, as if it would never stop increasing in height. I don't know if Ashia liked the name or if they officialized it to counter its negative connotations. You might have also heard it called the Ashia skyscraper. What you're saying is the very top floor. Seeing is the very top floor. When the structure was expanded, for a while the living area was kept as the highest floor, and now it's referred to as the Ashia floor or the attic. It's not possible to enter it without a very special key, one I most certainly don't possess. In fact, I've never set foot inside it despite monitoring these cameras daily. Of course, the cameras were installed after the place stopped being their residence, and they were only placed in some of the rooms before continuing was deemed unnecessary. The initial reason was to make sure it was preserved well, given that it was of great importance to the Ashia family. They were installed with the thought of someone breaking in and expecting to find unguarded hidden information. However, the installation process was never completed. While I don't know many of the details, I can say that not one time have I seen anything of importance happening inside. That sounded interesting, but it didn't mean much to us. This camera still showed an entirely desolate space. Every room with a camera is empty at the moment. This doesn't account for places like bathrooms, areas where the cameras are blocked by smoke, the lobby, other staff-only rooms, and the section of the attic that's not monitored. I'm just curious, but this room doesn't have a camera either, does it? I didn't see it on the monitors. No, it doesn't. For now, the number of us in the building is no lower than 8. We haven't been able to find the 8th person yet, but she must be here. I'm talking about Naomi Kapka, another staff member. I understand. Give me the name of everyone present. I will add Miss Kapka to the list. I'm Kate Kuiji. I'm the main person in charge of the tower's security system. Everyone else I have with me is a visitor. Understood. What are your names? I'm Irina Majitsu. My daughter Isla Majitsu is who spoke earlier. I'm noting it down. Akaro Esata. Atsuki Hakutoki. Shiraya Mirana. Sai. Sai what? Sai Yomiya. Alright, thank you. So adding in Miss Kapka, these are the 8 people we know for sure are currently inside. This will be helpful. Yes, right now she has to be in a place we can't see from here. The chances someone else is the chances someone else is too are slim. Okay. So how's the situation looking? We'd also appreciate having information. We don't have much to work with, only the testimony from people who were inside at the time. Given all the visitors were in the lobby, we don't have a comprehensive rundown to give you. Unidentified smoke appeared on the first floor, and shortly after an alarm went off. An effect of this alarm was to seal all the exit routes. We already know this. Why was the alarm triggered and how can we leave? There's one thing that triggers the alarm. According to what we've been told, it's forcing open the Sekimeiya cabinet. What do you mean? We were there just now and the cabinet looked fine. Not only that, but when the alarm went off, I was in a room with that very cabinet and I didn't hear anything happening to it. That sounds strange. This is reliable information that's been provided to us, so I don't know if it's possible something else triggered it. Maybe the system broke. What's for sure is that we just observed the Sekimeiya. Everything there is intact. I'm sure the Ashia family will be glad to hear that. I'll tell them immediately. However, that is as expected, seeing as all that was stolen were a few gemstones of little value. Everyone had a hard time processing that last sentence. Meanwhile, Suripo looked to be sending a text message, most likely to Ashia, assuring the well-being of the Sekimeiya. What do you mean? What was stolen? Well, naturally after the alarm went off, it took a while to confine everyone who had evacuated. A young individual carrying a black suitcase dashed off, so they were pulled aside. Inside it we found various gemstones that belonged to Ashia. That individual has refused to say anything. However, it's been assumed that some part of their actions triggered the alarm. If you say the Sekimeiya cabinet hasn't been damaged though, that puts some doubt on that conclusion. If their plan triggered the alarm, how did they manage to avoid getting trapped? We don't know, but since nothing is wrong with the Sekimeiya, this seems to confirm the goal was to divert everyone's expectations and steal a bunch of regular gems while everyone in charge thought that they knew the next target. What do you mean, the next target, and how long will we need to stay here as a result of this stunt? Both of your questions are related actually. I assume this means you haven't heard of the past incidents? Past incidents? What does that mean? I read about it not too long ago in Yushi News, about how Ashia Tower had suffered another robbery yet again by a group called Sin, I believe. Yushi News was a monthly newspaper that released a compilation of all the recent news. Given our town wasn't very big, it was a popular way to keep oneself updated, but it wasn't something I often looked at. Exactly. The Ashia family and Zin have a history together. Even though Ashia are perceived as the major force around, when they attracted people interested in their business, they inevitably drew in competition and enemies too. That part was majorly taken by Sin, a long-running group that specializes in robberies of valuable objects alongside similar criminal activities. When the Ashia family became an established and wealthy entity, they also became a great target for Sin. The fact they had developed in such a calm environment meant their security measures were far from prepared. It's rumored that Sin is a small group of people who work together and put a great deal of effort into their plans. Not a single time they have been caught, which evidently gave them a very strong reputation that most people came to know. While for Yushibana residents, the Ashia family might look like an almighty entity, in a slightly bigger picture they're not one at all. This led to them focusing on expanding themselves before even foreseeing or trying to prevent these attacks, which have only been getting bolder. The first one happened 2 years ago. The security at the time was nothing special, so it looked like a small job, not anything of particular note. However, since then, the attack increased in both scale and frequency. I couldn't tell you how big this group calling itself Sin really is, but they haven't stopped tormenting Ashia. Stopping them has been pretty problematic, and now they're attacking in broad daylight with mass panic like this. At least we assume they're involved here. Had such a battle actually been happening in the town I'd always lived in? I'd purposely avoided that entire side of it, but I hadn't heard of Sin even once. I could vaguely recall having heard that Ashia Tower had been robbed, but I'd never imagined the events were of such a large scale. No one I frequently talked to had an interest in the topic, so if it was common knowledge, I'd never been told. Ashia had always felt like a taboo, and I'd never personally researched them. I think the last time this happened wasn't too long ago, right? I was scared to bring Isla here, but she was really excited.
Yes, on the 24th of November, 21 days ago, Sin last attacked. Ignoring the latest security updates, they made their way in during the night and stole a lot of valuable gems. It was one of the strongest attacks Ashia had suffered to date.
Correct. Nothing actually indicates Sin were the ones involved, and in fact nothing ever does. However, the way everything goes smoothly and all of Ashia's efforts are proven futile screams Sin to everyone.
So this time, Ashia took it a step further, right?
Perhaps we'd all been thinking that. It looked like we had simply been caught in the middle of a rivalry and Ashia's latest move had imprisoned us. Yes, it's possible that Sin aren't actually involved given the stolen gems were found. Nonetheless, the way they were taken out is still unknown. They were in one of the deepest rooms of the floor you're on. What closed the exit was the alarm, which had never gone off in the past. While Ashia are denying it, malfunctions are a possibility. The alarm was supposed to only go off whenever the Sekimeiya cabinet was forced open. If stealing the gems we found was what triggered it, it doesn't make sense that they were brought outside. And on top of that, you're saying the Sekimeiya and the cabinet are intact. It all sounded very strange, and I was admittedly intrigued. I've been given authority to tell you about Ashia's latest move against Sin, which led to this incident.
I see. This is what I felt I couldn't say earlier.
Keep in mind that what I'm about to tell you is a confidential matter that you're only allowed to hear because of your circumstances. One constant that has always followed with Sin's attacks is that they attack during the night, presumably to minimize risks. Since no matter what Ashia tried, Sin bypassed it without an issue, they recently put their full effort into a way to eliminate the threat. The Sekimeiya exhibition was no more than bait they put out to lure in Sin. That and the alarm they secretly designed were the main two factors of their plan. The tower is equipped with cameras and security, however Ashia hoped Sin wouldn't anticipate such an abrupt jump in their measures. There was so much advertising done for this particular showing that everyone in town bought into it. That was the goal, but on the side Ashia secretly designed the alarm. It was going to be activated whenever the cabinet was forced open. Only one true key of the cabinet was made and the lock was very carefully designed to only allow the correct one. The cabinet itself, however, was one they already had and could easily be broken with force.
Obviously, breaking the glass of the cabinet would also activate the alarm. It was done so that any method of getting the Sekimeiya out without the key would trigger the alarm and trap the culprit with no way to escape. What the hell is this about? That shutter could have injured people as they were escaping. No, the mechanism is equipped with a sensor. If anyone had been in front of the shutter before it closed, it would have stopped moving until they stepped away. We all kept silent at the realization that our situation was far more unusual than we'd thought. The final element of the plan was the room you're currently in, the security room. The alarm, along with blocking off all methods of escape, has other smaller functions such as disabling the elevator, some lights and communication methods. The maximum time the exit was going to be shut was 12 hours. Maximum time? Does that mean it can be less than that? Yes, but please don't get your hopes up. After the alarm, the Sin members that got trapped inside would have no way to leave. You might have noticed the security room's door is sturdier than the others. The last function of the alarm was to lock it. Like the cabinet's lock, once the security room's door is locked, it can only be opened with the actual key, which is possessed by the security staff. Every staff member worked to put this mechanism and plan into effect, and they knew very well what they had to do today. Today, only Kate Kuiji was present. A security member would be inside the room constantly, monitoring the cameras. Of course, this is always done. Sin have shown multiple ways to overcome the cameras, but this time this was of little importance. During the time anyone from Sin was trapped, the security member in the security room would have one job: to relay information between the inside and the outside. This is why the security room is the only place where communication methods aren't cut off. Once it was all over, the security staff would be able to unlock the exit before the 12 hours. To ultimately ensure nothing funny occurred, that request would have to be approved by the Ashia family themselves. Only then would the exit be opened before the maximum time.
So you're saying they won't accept it?
No, they can't. They don't know why, but they are unable to even access the command that would let them give their approval to open the exit. They aren't sure, but most likely something went wrong. You don't say. Given the cause of the alarm is unknown, the most reasonable explanation is a malfunction. Hey, Kate, you knew about this function, right? Why did you say that we'd be here for 12 hours without mentioning that you had the chance to open the shutter earlier?
Back then I didn't think I was allowed to explain the mechanism and reason behind the alarm, but I was certain we wouldn't be leaving before the 12 hours were up. When I was still in this room, I noticed the same thing the Ashia family noticed. I didn't have permission to access that command. That meant that we would have to spend the full time here. In case something went wrong, this failsafe was designed. The exit would always open 12 hours after it locked. Obviously, that much time ensured that if a Sin member had gotten trapped, they couldn't escape when the time ran out.
How is it possible that you don't have access to it? Can't you fix it?
I'm afraid I wouldn't know where to start. I have no clue what caused it, but if the Ashia family is encountering the same error, it doesn't look like something I could solve.
Then, isn't there a way to take down the shutters from the outside? No. The attack was assumed to come during the night, but it happened this morning instead. I don't know a lot of details about this, but evidently Ashia were going to trap at least one Sin member inside and try to squeeze them for information over the security room microphone. No one really knows how big Sin is, but the shutters were designed in such a way that in case members came to rescue their trapped comrades, they couldn't do anything from the outside. This is why, in much the same way, we can't do anything to break them down without a method that would also collapse the entire building. They might look flimsy, but I can guarantee you they're not. I'm confused. Kate, if you knew about this, why did you ever leave the security room? Why didn't you use the microphone to talk to the trapped culprit as you'd all agreed?
To tell you the truth, I did. All of you were unconscious though, so you didn't hear me. I didn't receive any reply, and since the most important cameras had been disabled, I wanted to see for myself what had happened.
So, all of this means that there's no way out right now, at all. Yes, Ashia informed us of this plan days ago. They were certain Sin would attack, so the police had to be caught up. Since today was the last possible day, we were all anticipating Sin to come during the night, long before 9. I myself was in the tower, aware that the chances of a theft were incredibly likely. I kept talking to Ashia's staff about what the procedure would be if something were to happen. Sure enough, after thinking about it, I recalled having seen him next to the entrance door while we'd been waiting. I left before the hallway doors opened. We were told something could still happen, and one of us had also been pretty insistent in saying there'd be an attack. That's why we stayed outside and were able to restrain everyone who evacuated very quickly. I believe this is the scenario Ashia will be going with. This was an attack by Sin intended to subvert their expectations and target a lot of regular gems instead of the Sekimeiya. Maybe it would have been a success if it hadn't been for the new alarm. The suitcase was noticed right away and all the gems were retrieved. It's possible the alarm went off due to a malfunction, which is also preventing them from opening the exit before the maximum time. Right now, all they can do is wait and tell you guys to do the same. They don't believe anything else has happened and will most likely be calling this their victory. It's very likely they intend to compensate the people who got innocently trapped once the time runs out. I'm sorry I can't be of more help. While some details are still unclear, it all more or less makes sense. Alright. Is there anything else you should tell us? I don't believe so. There's nothing you should worry about besides having to be in there for a while. I personally apologize for all the inconvenience, and I'm sure all of you will be indemnified. Nobody wanted to mention that someone among us might not have been innocently trapped, and instead we stayed silent, thinking about the hours that awaited us. Was that really everything though? Was it all just a malfunction? Was Sin actually involved? I knew many things didn't quite add up. What the hell had happened to Naomi on top of it all? Recently there had been a similar attack in Yoshibana, where smoke had also been released. Assuming that Sin were involved in the attack on the tower, it was a pretty easy leap to assume that they had been behind the other. So, what are we gonna do? 12 hours is a lot of time. Can we go to the Sekimeiya again? I think you should first reunite with Miss Kapka. After that, make sure not to do anything Ashia might not be happy with, or they could find a way to avoid compensating you. Suripo forced a smile and was about to put an end to the conversation. Suddenly, out of the 3 computer monitors, the leftmost one went black. What just happened to the screen? Sai, who was the one in front of it, was first to react. Let me see. It's possible the computer stopped recognizing the screen. 1 second. Sai's overreaction threw everyone off, including Suripo. That was because we had only been looking at the middle screen, and the computer was still working. The leftmost screen had been displaying nothing but an empty part of the desktop. Regardless, Sai quickly grabbed the mouse Kate had used earlier and navigated to the screen configuration settings. At least you aren't using some custom operating system. I know what I'm looking for. I see. How strange. The left monitor isn't being detected at all. Does it matter? The computer didn't actually shut down, did it? Oh, no, obviously not. We can still hear and see you. Sorry, I was just confused. I don't know what caused it though. It just stopped detecting it out of the blue. You'll have time to figure it out. For now, there are better Suripo never finished that sentence. Before he could, the other 2 screens also went black. What happened now? It wasn't only the screens this time. The computer seems to have shut down too. How? What the hell? Shira, Erina and Isla were looking upward. It seemed the 3 computer screens weren't the only ones to have turned off. All the security cameras too? Oh no. The light works, so it can't be a power outage. Did a cable get disconnected? Kate crouched under the desk and looked behind the computer. There's nothing that looks wrong. He pressed the power button multiple times, but the computer refused to start up. What the hell just happened? Was it Naomi? Naomi? We were almost done with Suripo, and it was time to look at the recorded footage. If it implicated her, she might be responsible for the computer shutting off. Is she listening to us? Kate sprinted out of the room and looked at both sides of the hallway, even peeked at the lobby. While he was out and everyone's focus had diverted to the door, I noticed something behind me. Sai had just taken his arm away from the leftmost monitor. When he noticed I was looking at him, our eyes met and he smirked. Before I could think, noise filled the room again. Kate came back, panting. It seemed the possibility of being spied on in his workroom had really gotten to him. We didn't have to ask to know he found nothing. If this was achieved from outside the room, do you know how it could have been done?
No, that should be impossible. As I said earlier, underneath the lobby is the panel that handles the tower's electricity. While it isn't incredibly well protected, it should be impossible to power off the main computer from there.
That sounds very strange. Are you sure it wouldn't be possible?
I've worked here for many years, so yes.
Maybe we should go check anyway. I agree. Let me go with you, esteemed visitor. Without waiting for a reply, Sai grabbed me by my shirt and lightly ushered me out of the room. Hey, wait. He didn't wait. It's fine, I'll be right back.